welcome back to our series on Ember data adapters and serializers. Today we're going to be exploring adapters more in depth, getting into some of the more common customizations for adapters. In this week's Pro episode, we'll get into some even more in-depth customizations you can make. So in the DSAdapter base class, it gives us these methods. These are the core methods that need to be implemented. Those are the ones that are the core of DSAdapter. Everything else is to serve those. And what they do is they give you an URL, and then they call that URL. I happen to have hijacked some of these so that instead of calling the URL, they just post it here. So we'll use this to help explore the different ways we can customize your adapter. So first, let's do a rundown of the different methods that we have here. So we have create record, which will send something to the server that will create a record. And notice I have the name first. That's what it's called within the Ember data adapter. Then I have the HTTP method that's used. Then I have the URL that it's sent to. And then I have any additional query params that are sent up with it. Notice that there's other data that's being sent. We're posting a taco here, so it would send up data about that taco. But that's controlled by the serializer. And so we won't think about that during this time. We'll just worry about the query params, such as when you're doing the query. All right, so we can create a record, update the record, delete the record, find all of the records. We can query and query record, and I believe query returns an array and query record just turns 1. And then we have find record, which just gets us 1 record. It's worth noting that the RESTAdapter, which we're using today, has 3 other ones like this: find belongs to, find has many, and find many. However, these go off of the links that are given in the data. I couldn't get that working generically, and it's not part of the core ds.adapter, so we're going to skip over it for now. Now we're ready to customize our adapter. Alright, so we'll start with the most common one, which is namespace. So let's say the namespace is API version 1. So you'll see that it attaches that before what it had before. So it attaches it to the beginning, but doesn't attach it completely to the beginning because there's also the host attribute, which it'll attach before that. So without the host attribute, it's assuming that it's hosted at the same place as you're serving your Ember app from, and that might not always be the case. The host you'll probably want to change on an adapter and by adapter basis a lot of the time, rather than in the application. Say if you're calling out to GitHub or something like that. A third common edit is path for type. So this is the default path for type in the RESTAdapter. So what it does is it takes the model name, it camelizes it, and then it pluralizes it. So you'll see here that it's pluralized taco, and then for taco taco, it camelizes it and pluralizes it. So we'll see the change when we define our own path for type. We'll take the model name, and then we'll just return it. And this is all singularized, and this is singularized, and this is both singularized and not camel cased. Of course, you can do more than just return the plain model name, getting rid of the default path for type. I'll leave those exact details up to the twisted imagination of whoever designed your API. There are 2 other modifications that I want to show you today that are still fairly common. They just aren't as visible on this example I've made. So the first is headers, and it's fairly straightforward. It's just a hash of headers that you send. As you can see, they can be dynamic. You should note if you use a dynamic header that sometimes the dynamicism isn't within the Ember observer system, so you may have to call .volatile on that function. Alright, and the second set of customizations are the isInvalid and isSuccess methods. So they're used by handle response to decide whether the response is a success or a failure. And the defaults are fairly straightforward. If it's greater than 200, less than 300, or it's 304, then it's success. However, your server might not send back status codes like that, or it might send weird custom status codes. So is success and is invalid is the place to accommodate those. So in this episode, we were introduced to the core methods of the adapter and roughly what they do. And we saw how several different things can modify them. Several of the most common modifications are host, namespace, headers, is invalid and is success, and path for type. We also saw that, at least in the RESTAdapter, there are several ones that are just for getting relationships. In the next episode, we're going to be going over several of these other things like build URL, the URL for set of methods, and the reloading set of methods, as well as several others. I hope to see you then.